Hey everyone, the other day I introduced vertical angles to you as the last type of angle that we're going to learn about in this angle unit. And we first discussed what vertical angles are, and they were angles that were formed through the intersection of two lines, but most importantly, we had to recall that vertical angles were opposite of each other. So the example that we discussed was our 100s hallway, where all of the Pioneer teacher classrooms are. My classroom and Mrs. Kohler's classroom are on opposite sides of the hallway. They were directly across from each other. And that's what vertical angles are. We also need to know that vertical angles are congruent, which means they're equal to each other. Okay, so they always form when we have two intersecting lines shown in this picture, and they're across from each other. So here's the point of intersection. The vertical angles have to be across from each other. So in this picture, angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles, which means that angle 1 and angle 2 are going to have the same angle measure. Okay, angle 3 and angle 4 are vertical angles with each other, which means they're going to have the same degree measure as well. Now, angle 1 and angle 3 are not vertical angles. They are not across from each other. They are right next to each other. Okay. All right, so we're going to do a quick review of what we did the other day with solving for vertical angles. So in question 1, it says if the measure of angle 1 is 55 degrees, which is right here, if this angle is 55 degrees, we want to find the measure of angle 2. Well, angle 2 and angle 1 are vertical angles because we have two intersecting lines and they are across from each other, which means they're going to be equal to each other. So if angle 1 is equal to 55 degrees, angle 2 is also going to be equal to 55 degrees. All right, number 2, if the measure of angle 2 is 84, then find the measure of angle 4. Well, angle 2 and angle 4 are vertical angles because they are formed by the intersection of two lines and they're across from each other, which means they're going to have the same degree measure. So angle 4 is also equal to 84 degrees. Okay, that's all the review that I'm going to do from the other day because we don't even have to do any math. You're simply just writing the same angle measure down because they're equivalent or they're congruent. Remember, congruent is just that fancy word we use in math that just means equal. But now we're going to look at some other types of vertical angles. Now, as I said before, vertical angles are a pair of non-adjacent angles. That word non-adjacent, again, is just another fancy math word that means they're not right next to each other. Like angle 1 and angle 3 are right next to each other, so they're not vertical. Vertical angles have to be on opposite sides of each other. Now, intersecting lines, of course, form vertical angles like we talked about, but they also form supplementary angles, which we've learned about. So, remember, supplementary angles are on a straight line, and together their sum is 180 degrees, which means when we add them together, they have to add to equal 180. So, we know angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles, but angle 1 and angle 3 are supplementary angles, which means they both have to add to equal 180. Angle 1 and angle 4 are also supplementary angles because look, they're on this straight line, line M, and they're right next to each other, making them supplementary. Angle 3 and angle 2 are on a straight line, which means, and they're right next to each other, which means they're also supplementary. And angle 2 and angle 4 are also on a straight line, making them supplementary. Okay, so when we have the intersection of two lines, yes, we form vertical angles, but we also have the supplementary angles. And that's what we're going to look at today, finding the measures of supplementary angles through the intersection of two lines. Okay, so let's look at number 5. Number 5 says, if the measure of angle 1 is 68 degrees, then what is the measure of angle 4? Okay, so I'm going to type in the measure of angle 1, which is 68 degrees. Now I know this angle is 68 degrees. Okay, well now I'm asking you to find the measure of angle 4. Angle 1 and angle 4 are not vertical angles, so they're not equal to each other. So angle 4 does not equal 68 degrees. Angle 1 and angle 4 are supplementary angles because look, they're on this straight line here and they're right next to each other. A way to help you identify supplementary angles in a picture, you can draw a sunrise over angles 1 and 4 so to see that they are supplementary. So here's the line, like here's our horizon, and here's the sun coming up of that horizon. If you can draw that sunrise, then those two angles that are really in that sun are going to be your supplementary angles, which means together angle 1 and angle 4 has to equal 180 degrees. And we've done problems like this in the past. If I know that this angle 1 is 68, I can find the angle 4 because I can simply subtract 180 minus 68, which will give me the measure of angle 4, which is 112 degrees. So the measure of angle 4 is 112 degrees. Okay? Number 6, if the measure of angle 1 is 92 degrees, then what is the measure of angle 4? Okay, well here, angle 1 and angle 4. I can draw my sunrise on that straight line. The two angles that are in that sun there are going to be my supplementary angles. Well, if I know that angle 1 is equal to 92 degrees, I can find the measure of angle 4 by simply subtracting 180 minus 92, which will give us 88. So the measure of angle 4 is 88 degrees. Okay, number 7. What is the measure of angle Z? Well, this angle right here is 73 degrees. I know that this 73-degree angle and angle Z are supplementary. I drew my sunrise. It's just upside down. So I can find the measure of angle C by simply subtracting 180 minus 73, which gives us, excuse me, 107 degrees. So the measure of angle Z is 107 degrees. Okay, now let's look at number 9. Whoa, number 9. We need to find, oops, that shouldn't be there. We need to find the measure of angle A, B, and C, and we're going to do so in this box here. All right, so I have a lot of facts written here. I know that this angle is 70 degrees. What I would do is first find the angle measure of B, because these two angles, angle B and the 70-degree angles, are vertical angles, which means they have to be equal. So to find the measure of angle B is the simplest because I do not have to do any math here. So since angle B and the 70-degree angle are vertical angles, they're equal to each other. So angle B must equal 70 degrees because vertical angles are congruent. Okay, now I have to find the measure of angle A and angle C. Well, I'm just going to start with A. Angle A and this 70-degree angle are supplementary angles. I can draw that sunrise on this straight line, and these two angles are going to be supplementary. So I can find the measure of angle A by simply subtracting 180 minus 70 to get 110. So that tells me that angle A is equal to 110 degrees. Well, now I got to find angle C. Well, angle A and angle C are vertical angles. They're across from each other of two intersecting lines, which means they are equal. So angle C also has to equal 110 degrees. Okay, now we just found the measure of all those missing angles. Okay, number 10. I need to find the measure of angle A, B, and C. Start out with your vertical angles, boys and girls, because it's the simplest. You don't have to do any math. This 55-degree angle and angle B are vertical angles, which means they're equal to each other. So if this angle equals 55 degrees, angle B must also equal 55 degrees. Okay, now I have to find the measure of angle A and angle C. Well, angle A and this 55-degree angle are supplementary angles. I could draw my sunrise here. So that means together they have to equal to 180 when I add them. I already know that this angle is 55 degrees. So to find the measure of angle A, I simply need to subtract 180 minus 55, and I get 125 degrees. So angle A equals 125 degrees. Well, now I got to find angle C. Well, angle A and angle C are vertical angles. They're across from each other, which means they must be equal. So if angle A equals 125 degrees, angle C must also equal 125 degrees. Okay, boys and girls, you are now going to complete the vertical angles day 2 assignment. Questions 1 through 10. If you have any questions, please ask me.